Hello everyone, my name is Jason and this is Netminder Review. I decided to wear my Jameson Irish whiskey shirt for this one because if you're fans of some of these goalies, it might drive you to drinking if you don't already. So if you didn't watch my previous video, which was titled, Which NHL Goalies Give Their Teams the Best Chance to Win, then it would be helpful if you went back and watched that video first, because it's going to explain to you the statistical concept and the modality that I'm using for this one. It'll explain all the terms, define what I mean when I say really bad start. So go back and watch that one if you haven't already, and then come back and check this one out. So in the last video, we looked at which goaltenders were giving their teams the best chance to win. In this video, we're looking at which goaltenders are giving their teams the worst chance to win. And so what we've got here are goaltenders who have started at least 25 games and how many really bad starts they have in the amount of starts that they have. So we'll start with Mike Smith from the Edmonton Oilers. Mike Smith has had 9 really bad starts in 37 starts. Now again, if you don't know what a really bad start is defined as, go back and watch my previous video and that'll give you the definition. So Mike Smith, Edmonton, has had 9 really bad starts in 37 games. Jimmy Howard from Detroit, 9 really bad starts in 27 games. Now you might be thinking, well, of course Jimmy Howard has had a bunch of really bad starts. He plays for Detroit. Pause that thought. Keep that thought somewhere in the back of your mind. And at the end of this video, I'm going to specifically discuss that question about Jimmy Howard and the Detroit Red Wings and why is Jimmy Howard on this board. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. All right, so Mike Smith from Edmonton, Jimmy Howard from Detroit, Carter Hart from Philadelphia, 9 really bad starts in 40 games. Now, keep in mind, Edmonton, if there are playoffs this year and if things finish as they are now, Edmonton, playoff team, Detroit, worst team in the NHL, Philadelphia, not only a playoff team, but first in their division and one of the best teams in the NHL. Marc-Andre Fleury, 9 really bad starts in 48 starts. Remember, this second number here, this is starts. It's not games played. They might have played more games. This is how many games they started. So Marc-Andre Fleury, 9 really bad starts in 48 games. So these are your goaltenders with 9 really bad starts. Marc-Andre Fleury, Carter Hart, Jimmy Howard, Mike Smith. What about goalies who have 10 really bad starts? John Gibson from the Anaheim Ducks, 10 really bad starts in 51 starts. Now, right off the bat, if you're looking, you're going to notice some interesting things. John Gibson has started 51 games for Anaheim. That's a ton. Marc-Andre Fleury, 48. Of course, he probably, again, if there is a continuation of the regular season, Marc-Andre Fleury will probably start a lower percentage of their games because they've got Robin Lehner now instead of Malcolm Subban, so they can put more trust in their backup goaltender if you even want to call Robin Lehner a backup. Carter Hart has spent some time injured, but 40 starts. Jimmy Howard, 27. Understandably why. Mike Smith, 37. So you can see which of these guys are really taking on the workload. Of course, in Edmonton, you've got Mikko Koskinen, who's playing very, very well. And so Mike Smith's not getting as many of the starts. And when we look at this, 9 really bad starts in 37, that might be contributing as well. Over here, Sergei Bobrovsky. Now, I did a video not too long ago called What's Up with Sergei Bobrovsky, where I went through and did a deep dive into Bobrovsky's statistics, not only this year, but in over the course of the last 4 years. If you haven't watched that, if you're interested in Sergei Bobrovsky and taking a look at the numbers, go back and watch that. But Sergei Bobrovsky, 10 really bad starts in 48 games. Now, 48 starts, I'm sorry. 10, he's making $10 million a year. He's got that 7-year contract. I talk all about that in my video on Sergei Bobrovsky, but that's really ugly. However, that being said, is Sergei Bobrovsky having a bad year? Yes. Does he have a lot of really bad starts? Yes. But I just want to stop and say kudos to Sergei Bobrovsky for putting up, I believe it was $100,000 to pay the part-time arena employees in Florida while they're having to be out because the NHL season is postponed. So kudos to Sergei Bobrovsky for taking the lead on that. That was awesome. And if you got to have a guy who's playing poorly but is an awesome human being, I'll take that over somebody who's playing extremely well but is a crud human being. So my congratulations and thanks to Sergei Bobrovsky. Pekka Rinne, 11 really bad starts in 35 games. Now, again, if you watch the video on which goalies are giving their teams the best chance to win, you see UC Saros is on there. And I made mention in that video that it's a good thing UC Saros is on that list because Pekka Rinne is on this list. And if you think about that, that should really tell you something about whether or not the team's goaltending woes are on the goaltender or on the team. If Nashville is losing games, and of course they had begun to climb back in recently, although I think their last 2 games they may have lost or something like that. They had begun to climb back in more recently, okay? If their goals allowed woes were completely goaltending issues, then you would see Pekka Rinne and UC Saros on this board. If their goaltending woes were all on the team, right, then either way, it would be, I might have basically said the same thing twice. I apologize if I did. Anyway, if it was team defense that was causing them to allow a lot of goals, this is my point, then you would expect to see both goalies on here. But when you see one goalie on the goaltenders who are giving their team the worst chance to win, and the other goalie from the same team on the goaltenders who are giving their teams the best chance to win, that tells you it's not a team defense problem. It's an individual goaltending issue. UC Saros is having a good year. Pekka Rinne, I'm not saying he hasn't played some good games. He has, but he's not having an overall very good year. And I understand he's on the downside of his career, but this just really emphasizes the difference there between where Pekka Rinne is in his career and where UC Saros is in his. Carey Price, 11 really bad starts in 58 starts. Now here's another one. Think John Gibson's played a lot of games? Check out Carey Price, 58 starts. He is playing a ton. So yeah, he's had 11 really bad starts, and that's not great. But when we're done here looking at this, I'm going to take these names off the board and rearrange them by percentage. We'll see if Carey Price moves. Martin Jones from the Sharks, 11 really bad starts in 39 games. He has started to play better more recently, and it's kind of a shame that, it's a shame for a whole host of reasons what's going on with the league, but Martin Jones was starting to show some improvement, and I hope this layoff doesn't stint that growth and he's able to pick up where he left off when he comes back. Braden Holtby, 11 really bad starts in 47 starts. Capitals are a fantastic team. Capitals are they're I think they're in second place in their division right now behind Philly, but they're fighting for that first place spot. Maybe they're tied for first, I can't remember. But Braden Holtby has had some clunkers this year. He's had some starts that were not all that in a bag of chips. So now, after we've looked at just the sheer numbers of how many really bad starts have these goalies allowed in the amount of starts that they've played, I'm going to rearrange the board according to percentages. What percentage of their starts have been really bad starts, and we'll determine which goaltender this year has given his team the least opportunity to win on a regular basis. More to come. All right, so let's look at this from a percentage standpoint. Carey Price. Carey Price moves on our board to, still on the board, but at number 10. So Carey Price is at 19%. So 19% of his starts have been really bad starts. So that's not great, but he has had, it was a whole bunch of starts, 58 starts. So he's had a lot more opportunities to have really bad starts, that's for sure. But from a percentage standpoint, it really isn't about opportunities. It's just about sheer how many out of every. So 19% of Carey Price's starts, he's gone out there and really not given the Montreal Canadiens any real hope of winning. And yes, I do understand that save percentage is not always just a goalie statistic. If a team allows, 7 breakaways in a game, well, maybe the goalie's going to stop him, but if he does, that's fantastic. But it's not likely. However, more often than not, if a goaltender has a really bad save percentage in a game, it's because he played poorly. Marc-Andre Fleury, also at 19%, but in fewer games. So really, his 19% is a little worse than Carey Price's. Now, Marc-Andre Fleury has been on my power ranking the last couple weeks. He's played much better. So some of his really bad games were earlier in the season. It's not all been recently, although I think he may have had one recently. But Marc-Andre Fleury has been good, well, obviously more than, let's say 81% of the time, but nevertheless, he's had some clunkers, and so he does show up on the board. And by the way, Robin Lehner's there now. Robin Lehner has played very well since coming over to the Knights, and I don't know if we will see with the season being on hold, but when the time comes that they're both playing again, I'll be really interested to see what Peter DeBoer does, if he primarily plays Lehner, if he primarily plays Fleury, if he just splits the two, and especially what happens going into the playoffs. That's going to be really interesting to watch. John Gibson from the Anaheim Ducks. So he had started 51 games. He has started 51 games this season. 20% of them have been really bad starts. So I'm not a mathematician. In fact, I hate math. But if I'm not mistaken, that's 1 out of every 5 games. So one time out of every 5 games, John Gibson has a clunker. Now, that may or may not sound really bad to you, but it isn't good. If you go back and watch the other video that I did before this one, you take a guy like Linus Ullmark, who is only having one really bad start every 6% of his games, or he's only having 6% of his games that are really bad starts. So, he's going out there and only having basically one really bad start every 20 games. And then you look at John Gibson, who's having one every 5. I mean, just to put it in some perspective here, the numbers are rough. It's hard to win games or to go on a prolonged winning streak, or to book points in regularly in your games when your goaltender is only really putting up a strong start 4 out of every 5 games. And the reality is, in those other 4, sometimes that save percentage might be 88 or 89, which doesn't show up on this board, but it's still not good. Sergei Bobrovsky, 21%. 21% of Sergei Bobrovsky's starts have been really bad starts. And of course, we know that Sergei Bobrovsky has had an extremely down season, that, no matter how you slice it, every way you look at Florida's plight, it doesn't look good with the contract that he signed. Braden Holtby, 23% of his starts have been really bad starts. And yet, Washington continues to plow through. When you see a goaltender who's had some struggles like Holtby, 23% of his starts are really bad starts. He's not, if you look at the goals against averages in the NHL, he's not among the leaders. If you look at save percentage in the NHL, he's not among the leaders. And yet here Washington is vying for first place in their division. Well, that tells me, 2 things in this situation. 1, when Samsonov has played, he's largely played well. But 2, Washington scores a lot of goals, okay? You take this same performance here that you're getting from Holtby and you put it on Dallas, and Dallas is dead. Why? Because they can't score. You put it in Arizona and they're dead. Why? Because they can't score. Why are Dallas and Arizona potentially playoff teams? Dallas seems like a definite playoff team, and Arizona potentially. They can't score. Neither of those teams can score with a dirt. But if you go back and watch my previous video, you see Darcy Kemper, you see Antti Ranta, you see Anton Hudobin. So you've got, and though Ben Bishop wasn't on the board, he's still played really strong this year. So you've got teams like Dallas and Arizona that can't score, but they're getting fantastic goaltending, and therefore they're in playoff contention. And then you got teams like Washington, who, I'm not saying Braden Holtby has not had any good games this year. He's had his good games, had plenty of good games, but he's had more clunkers than Arizona's 2 goaltenders combined, and yet Washington is a powerhouse. Why? Well, maybe because Ovechkin, Oshie, maybe because they can put the puck in the net, not at will, but certainly a whole lot. You know, why has Mike Smith not totally train wrecked the Oilers? Well, partly because of Mikko Koskinen, but maybe partly because of Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid and Nugent Hopkins and guys who are scoring lots of goals. So and others too. I'm forgetting some. Forgive me if you're an Edmonton fan and I'm forgetting all the multitude of high-scoring offensive players that you have. There's just too many to remember. So anyway, that's why a team can have a goaltender that shows up on this board and yet they're still winning. Carter Hart. Now, Carter Hart, this one, first of all, it surprised me. Not only do I have Carter Hart on my power ranking board, but he's been moving up my power ranking board. Carter Hart has been fantastic. But throughout the season, not necessarily all recently, but throughout the season, 23% of his games have been really bad starts. Nevertheless, I think Carter Hart in the long run is going to show that he is one of the top-notch goaltenders in the NHL. I think he's a franchise goaltender. But you know what? So is Braden Holtby. I mean, the man's won a Vezina. So is Sergei Bobrovsky. He's won too. So is Marc-Andre Fleury. Carey Price, widely regarded as one of the best goaltenders in the NHL over the last number of years. There are some fantastic goaltenders who are on this board. This is not a reflection of whether or not these guys can be great goaltenders or have had great games this year. They have. Some of them, many of them are great goaltenders. Many of them have had great games this year, and many of them have had fantastic careers. But this year, they're going out there and they're really laying an egg. They're having a clunker once every 5 games or more. And that's rough. Yes, a team can still be a winning team. Philadelphia, Washington, Vegas, with a goaltender who's having a clunker once every 5 games, but it doesn't help. It makes it more difficult. It means the other goaltenders got to play that much better, and it means that the team has got to put up more goals in order to win. High-powered offenses, if you can have one, can cover up for some suspect goaltending at times, but if you don't have that high-powered offense and you get this kind of goaltending from time to time, you're dead. Mike Smith with Edmonton, 24% of his starts have been really bad starts. Martin Jones with San Jose, 28% of his starts have been really bad starts. Pekka Rinne, 31% of his starts have been really bad starts. Now, let's go back and address that whole situation again. Are these team issues? Well, if these were team issues, if these were always team issues, then I would expect to see 2 goaltenders from the same team on this board. If it's a team issue, if the fact that the Sharks let me rephrase that. If the fact that Martin Jones is on here is strictly because the Sharks have really bad defense, then why isn't Aaron Dell on here also? If the fact that Pekka Rinne is on here can be completely contributed to Nashville not playing well, then why is UC Saros not only not on here, but on the other board for the goaltenders who are giving their teams a really great opportunity? Why isn't Mikko Koskinen probably doesn't have enough starts to be on here, so I probably didn't even look at his numbers. But you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. These are partly team issues. The teams can't be held completely unaccountable for the fact that their goaltender is on this board. But really, this is a look at the goaltender, okay? This is a look at the goaltender. You could argue with Arizona having both of their goaltenders on the other board. You could make the case, well, they just have great defense. You could make that case. I don't think that's it. I think that Antti Raanta and Darcy Kemper have both had really good years. But you could make the case in that situation. It's just really great defense by Arizona. But you can't make the case, well, San Jose just can't play defense. That's why Martin Jones is on here, because Aaron Dell's not. You can't make the case, well, Nashville just can't limit scoring chances. That's why Pekka Rinne is on here. No, because UC Saros is not only not on here, but he's on the other board. And at number 1, the goaltender who has given his team the least opportunity to win on a regular basis this year, Jimmy Howard. 33%. 33% of Jimmy Howard's games have been clunkers. So effectively 1/3, almost. Every time he goes out there, 1 out of every 3 of his games, he is having a bad game. Yeah, actually it is 1/3, 33%. So he's having a bad game once every 3 games, which is why he's only started 27 games. But that was enough to qualify because I was only looking at goaltenders who had started 25 or more. Now, this is the ultimate example of what I was just talking about with, is it the goalie or is it the team? Detroit, the Detroit Red Wings, 31st ranked team in the NHL, right? I don't remember what the numbers were. I didn't look at it today. I haven't looked at it the last few days, and I don't remember numbers all that well. But they had been outscored by, it was over 100 goals this season. So they're allowing way more goals than they're scoring. They're bad. No matter how you look at it, Detroit is bad. So anybody could look at this and say, okay, of course Jimmy Howard is on here. He plays for Detroit. But again, if that's the case, where's Jonathan Bernier? Well, I'll tell you where Jonathan Bernier is. Jonathan Bernier has 41 starts for Detroit compared to Jimmy Howard's 27. That's 14 more. He started 14 more games. How many really bad starts does Jonathan Bernier have? 5. 5 really bad starts in 41 games for Jonathan Bernier. That's 12% compared to Jimmy Howard's 33%. I'm not trying to pick on Jimmy Howard here. I'm just taking a look at statistics. Jimmy Howard is on this board because Jimmy Howard is having a terrible year. It isn't because he plays for the Detroit Red Wings. Because Jonathan Bernier plays for the Detroit Red Wings, and he's not on here. Not only is he not on here, but he's really closer to the other board than he is this one. On the other board, I did top 10 goaltenders, and the 10th goaltender, the last couple goaltenders were at 10%. Jonathan Bernier is only at 12%. He's not much worse than the final few of the top 10. And Jimmy Howard is leading the worst 10. So Jimmy Howard this year has given his team the worst chance to win. And if you want to know which goaltender was giving his team the best chance to win, go back and watch my previous video if you haven't already, which is titled, I think, which NHL goalie gives his team the best chance to win. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this information as interesting as I did. I found it fascinating and wanted to share it with you. I really hope that you'll hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I would greatly appreciate it if you would do that. And let's hope for hockey to resume soon. Have an awesome day.